Hi. First of all, I wanted to thank you for coming here. I have to say that after 5 years of YouTube talking to a few people, or a lot of people like Amir, like Michal, and there are many more here, I have to say that I had the chance to meet them in real life. And I also met extraordinary people here, so this is kind of a very inspiring event, especially for me, because I didn't expect it was really amazing to see all these people so passionate about language learning, and not only about language learning. So I thank you dearly for coming, and so numerous. Now, today's presentation is going to be about making languages work for you. I wanted to start with a kind of romantic note. And, you know, I think that love and passion are very important in life. I wanted to show you two simple pictures. The one on the left is my grandmother, and the one on the right is my grandfather. They met almost 100 years ago, and I have to say that these two are and have been the inspiration for me. In my house there were tons of books of every field, every possible field, and she was a math teacher at high school, and my grandpa was a rational mechanics professor at university. But their passion was not just about mathematics, it was about everything. It was a passion and thirst for knowledge. And the amazing thing, when I say that love is everything, is that they passed not only their knowledge, but they passed the thirst for knowledge to their sons. And some 30 years later, my brother was born, here on the left. This is my father. And my sister, me and my sister, I joined them a little bit later.
Wow.
Somebody said that my father looks a little bit like me. I don't know about that. Might be possible. Now, the reason why I'm talking about the fact that they were inspiring figures is that they seeded something important in me. When in the summer, my grandmother, she took me aside. I was 9 years old, and she told me, you know, you're going to you're going to middle school very soon. Why not study, for example, Latin and French? You can imagine that in the summer you want to go playing with your brothers and sisters, you want to go swimming in the sea, etc. But, you know, I was reluctant a little bit at first, but then I gave it a try. And I have to say that these lessons, just 1 hour a day, they changed my way of seeing things, and I was 9. Now, like every other Italian student at middle school, I tried to study English, and I also tried to study French, but I hadn't fallen in love with the languages, because the system at school, you know, you normally don't get in love with languages. You don't fall in love with languages. My parents decided to hire a private tutor of English at the age of 12. And what happened is that these two, I call them the Hardy Boys series, it's a very simple book. What happened is that my aunt, who also loves languages, and she is a wonderful polyglot as well, she gave me this book, one of the books here, The Tower Treasure. It was a very, very simple book. But the thing that struck me is that immediately after, you know, leafing through the book, I really wanted to understand every single word of this book. I remember looking up every single word. I don't know why, but it had spawned some kind of linguistic monster in me, and I wanted to learn English so bad that my parents decided to hire, as I said, a private tutor, and her name is Susan. She is from Chicago. I have to say she was also another inspiring person, because she loved what she was doing. She loved teaching. She loved conveying knowledge. And after middle school, I tried to learn German. I remember I saw a dusty book, grammar book, and I tried to figure out, the grammar, German grammar. It was kind of difficult at the beginning, because I was doing it the wrong way, and I didn't know what didn't work for me. So I tried and I tried, and then all of a sudden, I found out I would call it the Luca Method. I don't know how to call it. It's my method. Before showing you what I do, I would like to say that for me, after some 32 years, I just believe, and I'm certain of this, that there is no best language path. There's just your language path. Here in physics, normally, when you are at point A and you want to go to point B, there are many possible paths that you can follow. I would like to say that if you consider the number of people who speak a lot of languages, we have all learned languages differently. I don't think nobody has learned language the same way as the other person. So this is kind of proof that for me, there's no best language method that people are looking for. What is the best method? This is one of the most asked questions ever. So, what I believe, and these are two very simple steps, you have to find your own language path. You have to find out what you like, and you have to do something each day, because that's the best way to feed your brain and to give it knowledge. Now, I call it the Luca Method, but I also call it the full circle method. The reason why I call it the full circle method is that it consists of 2 steps. When you're dealing with a foreign language, you're immediately confronted with something totally new that you don't understand. So you have to try to figure out how the language works. Now, it might sound a little bit trivial, but the thing is that I believe that in order to learn well, you have to make certain that you understand what you're learning. It might sound very trivial, but some people, for example, they tell me, Luca, I've been learning Spanish for 3 days, I don't understand the radio. I said, well, the reason why you don't understand the radio is simply because language, connected speech, when we're speaking, language is a flow. So if you don't see the boundaries of words, you cannot understand it. It takes time to do that. So I think that it's something progressive, and you have to make certain that you understand what you're doing all the time. Some people just start learning a language, and then they really don't understand what they're reading or what they're listening. So I always try to make sure to have, for example, bilingual text, so that I can understand not only the language that I'm trying to figure out, but I use my L1, I would say, my mother tongue, as a crutch to understand how the other language works. But some people say that listening and reading are key to language learning. I believe that. I believe that's the first step. But I also believe that you have to do something else in order to ingrain the language in you. So what I do normally, I don't start speaking from day one, but I start elaborating the information in a certain way, and I call it synthesis. So every piece of information is first analyzed and then synthesized, so to say, and this is a way to build a foundation and learning how to assemble the pieces. Now, here on the y-axis you got the efficiency, and here is time. As you can see, once again, I want to stress the fact that this is not universal. This is my way of learning languages. There are some people who immediately start learning a language. For example, they go to a country and they try to learn as much as they can, spending many hours. I don't do that. What I do in the beginner phase is I kind of learn slowly. It means that every day, in order to, there's a very important thing that really counts, is the fact that a lot of people, you're all passionate about languages. So for you, it's not a problem, but for a lot of people, burning out and giving up because they say, well, I can't do that, it's too difficult, is a serious risk. And the reason why this is a serious risk is because a lot of people try to learn too much. They spend 3-4 hours trying because they want to do it, and they believe that the more you do something, the more you get good at it. It's true, but at the beginning, your brain necessarily needs some time to gestate. You need some time to ingrain, to get the language in it, and it takes time. There's nothing else. There's no way. There's no shortcut. So what I do is I start learning briefly, and kind of slowly at the beginning. This is the so-called beginner phase, as I call it, when you're a total beginner. So the language is unknown, it's not only a matter of grammar, it's also a matter of syntax, it's also a matter of sounds. So what I do is I make sure I work a little bit every day. What does it mean, a little bit? A little bit means that it's your little bit. It could be 10 minutes, it could be 20 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be 5 minutes. Just the time that you want to spend the language with. And when you feel that you don't want to learn anymore, just stop, relax. The content, what I use is normally language series. Now, another very important point that I want to stress is the fact that a lot of people ask me, what is the best language course? Now, the answer is that it's not so much about the language series or the book that you use, but how you use it. And this is not only in languages, it's in mathematics, in everything. You have to make sure you absorb the content. You don't have to learn it by heart. For example, there are people who told me, I learned the whole ASIML series by heart. So, wow, I would not do that. I try to absorb the content, and I try to learn how to assemble the pieces. This is what I do. And the philosophy here is that my work, and what I do in this phase, is quality work. That's an important principle, as you will see in a bit. So what I do is, basically, this is kind of a training that could last 3 to 6 months, for example, depending on the language. If the language is extremely difficult, for example, I have to say the Japanese for me is extremely difficult. It's the very first language that has a completely different structure, and it takes time. It's not just a matter of 3 months. Portuguese was much easier for me because if you already speak Spanish, Portuguese is a different language, but still it's pretty similar, and you just have to change a little bit the pronunciation system, and then you can speak very, very quickly. So it really depends on the language. Once I spent 3 to 6 months on the language, my efficiency starts speeding up. It means that for example, if I spend some time on language material, I can spend a little bit, instead of 30 minutes, I could spend, for example, an hour on that. I call this a kind of a phase of semi-automatism. It means that at the beginning, when you're a beginner, you don't know the language and it's totally unknown. You don't have the capacity of understanding how it works, but here you understand it a little bit more. You're more familiar with it. And with time, I add quantity. It means that I can spend, for example, an hour without burning out. And the amazing thing now is the fact that I get rid of books like ASIML, Teach Yourself, and what I've been doing in the last 3 years, I create and choose my content. Now with the internet, YouTube, you name it, there's a dearth of materials that you can select, and you can build your own content. For example, if you like politics, if you like any field, let's say that you like biology, you can have the possibility of choosing texts that have to do with biology, and if you like something, you're more motivated to understand what you're trying to learn. While, for example, with ASIML or other language series, it's a little bit more difficult because they impose your content. This has changed the way I learn languages, especially in the last 3 years. Now, I keep using the full circle method or the bilingual translation, but I also add something else, which is fast reading. It means that I add quantity to quality. And I make a special review. It means that in order to retain what I learn, I review it according to a certain system that helps me retain the information. And I add quantity to quality, and I build a so-called language core. In our head, I believe, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I believe that every time that I speak a language, I feel different. When I speak American English, I'm not the same person as when I speak Italian. Other thoughts come to my mind, other ways of, using my hands. And I believe that these cores are just in my head somewhere. They're separated. So I believe that when you learn another language, you develop some kind of language core. And what happens is that something clicks in your mind. and you have the language in you in some way. You don't know exactly why, but that's what happens. And that's what happened to me. And once that happened, I call it the epiphany point, or the Eureka Moment, whatever you want to call it. I start learning faster and faster without making efforts. For example, here at the conference, what we did, I call it the automatism phase, because the language is automatic now. There are some things in your brain that are automatic. When you don't speak a language still very well, you struggle a little bit with words and sentences, but when you are at that phase, everything comes out naturally. So, like at this conference, for example, we spent a lot of time talking in, well, I'm sorry we just spoke English here on stage, but outside, we just spoke all possible languages, every single language we could find. We spent 12 hours speaking other languages, especially the languages we like. So we don't think about time anymore. It just happens. Obviously, apart from talking to native speakers, you can also watch TV, documentaries, you can read books, you can watch movies, and you can do it anytime. With the internet, you can find anything if you're willing to do it. So what I do is, it's not a matter of method. I wouldn't call it a method anymore. I would call it, I create my own environment. And I give myself chances to use all the languages, or almost all the languages. So the principle here is just that I make constant use of the language. And the goal, it's kind of a lofty goal, I admit it. It's to reach native-like fluency. I don't believe in native. There's a lot of debate about this. Well, speaking like a native, I think it completely misses the point. It just, reaching native-like for me means being able to communicate with others at almost native level, enjoying languages like natives, as natives do. I think that this method is efficient because it abides by the so-called Pareto Principle, or the 80-20 rule. Now, we don't have time to delve into this, but it's just that, you do quality work, is the 20%, and then you add quantity. Not effortlessly, but it's much easier for me. So I just build this foundation, and then I use the language. It's not linear. I don't believe in linear. I don't believe in the fact that you have to learn. You have always to follow certain steps. Sometimes language comes randomly at you, but it's progressive, obviously. And this method is, when people ask me, what is your method? It's a combination of methods, not just one. It adapts with time. What I do at the beginning, when they say, what is the best thing that you can do to learn a language? It depends on the time. For example, if you're just a beginner listening to the radio, I don't think it's, well, unless you want to hear some noise, or unless the language is extremely similar to yours, you can do that. But I believe at the beginning you have to make sure that you understand everything. So what you do at the beginning, you don't do it after. For example, somebody told me, do I have to translate a whole book, like 500 pages, back and forth? I said, no, you don't need that. At the beginning I said, it's really, it could be aggravating, So it is constant and consistent. Once again, what I do is I try to do it every single day. When I fall in love with a language, like a girl, you have to see it every day. Well, not every day, but you have to be, consistent. And above all, it adapts to my way of learning. I like learning languages in a certain way, and I found out this method adapts to my way of learning it. And it is varied. It's extremely varied. When I take a language series or a language book, I do a lot of things with it. If you have something, you can attack it from different perspectives. And the more varied it is, the more you're telling your brain that information is valuable. And it's fun. I really enjoy it. So, I could spend, especially in the intermediate and the advanced phase, I could spend hours and hours. I have to stop because my time is limited. But once you start enjoying it, you can spend a lot of time on it. And that's the problem. Now, when you speak a couple of languages, Italian, for example, in my case, and American English, you can still use the language. The time is still not a problem. But then add all the other languages. So, now, for example, the last 2 languages I'm learning are Polish and Japanese. Now, if you consider 12 languages, and if you consider that a native speaker spends so much time, I did the math, it's 80,000 hours. We should have 10 lives. 10 lives. We just have one. So the solution is to make languages a part of your life. Now, I hold a degree in electronic engineering. I really love mathematics and physics. And my father, this is an Italian tradition, when your father is a lawyer, you should be a lawyer. Well, not all the time, it's very often. My father was a very proud engineer, he still is actually. And he wanted me to become an engineer. He said, look, you could do amazing things, this is an amazing job. And when I was 18, you know, I just listened to him, and I embarked upon the quest of becoming an engineer. In Italy, it's not easy, especially university in Rome. It's extremely difficult, so it took a lot of time. But 3 years ago, I went to Paris, and for a couple of months, I didn't really know what to do. I had to make a choice. There was a possibility of going to California for a PhD, but something was not right. There was this inner voice talking to me, and it was saying, no, this is not your way, this is not your way. So I believe that when you have this inner voice, and it starts being, you know, louder and louder, you have to listen to it, and I listened to it. So from engineering, I decided to drop it, and I decided to become a language coach. Now, unfortunately, he's not here. He's Hungarian. It's a coincidence that, you know, the conference is here. But he sent me an email. So when I wasn't certain, when I was in Paris and I didn't really know what to do out of my life, and I was thinking, this guy sent me an email, and he asked me a very simple question. I hadn't said anything about teaching. I was just making videos on YouTube. And he just said, do you teach Italian? I didn't think about it for a moment. I just said yes. And I started teaching. I started working with him in Italian. Now, when you embark upon, when you change directions in life, you feel uncertainty. There are obstacles in life. It's not going to be all roses, you know. Sometimes you have doubts. I read this poem. Some people say it's from Pablo Neruda, some others don't. But I found it extremely inspiring. Every time I feel doubt, I think about this. This is just a part of it. It's not the entire poem, but I would like to read it to you. So, he or she who shuns passion, who prefers black and white, dotting one's eyes rather than a bundle of emotions, the kind that make your eyes glimmer, that turn a yawn into a smile, that make the heart pound in the face of mistakes and feelings, dies slowly. He or she who does not turn things topsy-turvy, who is unhappy at work, who does not risk certainty for uncertainty, to thus follow a dream, those who do not forego sound advice at least once in their lives, die slowly. Let's try and avoid death in small doses, reminding oneself that being alive requires an effort far greater than the simple fact of breathing. Only a burning patience will lead to the attainment of a splendid happiness. And the sentence that struck me is, those who do not forego sound advice at least once in their lives. Now, your parents and all those around you who love you, they'll always try to give you advice, but then you are responsible for your life. You know what is right for you. And so I listened to my inner voice, and I decided to become a language coach. Now, if more and more people are asking me on YouTube, sending me private messages to say, what are you doing? What is it exactly to be a language coach? How did you do it? Now, it's a very simple step. As Benny said yesterday, for example, if you make videos on YouTube, YouTube for me is the best platform. There are a lot of video platforms like YouTube, but this is probably the most popular in the world. And once you make quality videos, make sure you got a fine camera and everything, the equipment, you can increase visibility by pulling strings, so to say, and establishing connections, writing on other blogs, for example, the things that Benny said yesterday. And then you can build a platform online. It's not that expensive to build a platform. It could be a blog at the beginning, and then you can create another platform along with it, and you can offer content, like make interesting videos providing content and say, look, I provide this content, you can get more content if you contact me. This is what I am doing and what I plan on doing more and more. Now, I consider myself an independent language learner. When people say, for example, that you don't learn anything at school, this is not true, obviously. You learn some things, but you have to be responsible for your own learning. But I also love teaching. Now, what is teaching exactly? It might sound a little bit contradictory, but if you this is one of my favorite quotes, and I say it all the time to all my students, the first lesson, is languages cannot be taught, they can only be learned. So at the beginning, the first lesson, I tell them, look, you are responsible for your own language learning. I can guide you. I cannot teach you the language. I think in English there is something like you cannot lead a horse to water, right? But you cannot make it drink, right? And I believe that. Now, if you take a look at this is the system, the so-called school system. The teacher is at the center, and the student orbits around the teacher. It means that the teacher decides the content, decides what to do, etc., etc. And as you can see here, this is like a unidirectional flow of information. At the beginning, the teacher is imposing the content. And this one is my system, the Luca system, I don't know. There's a student, the student is always at the center. And this is a bi-directional flow. It means that I work with them, we work together. They do things, I tell them to do things, for example, during the week. They give me their homework and I correct them. It's just a game between us. And I believe that the teacher has to be a guide and has to be a motivator. This is extremely important. But the responsibility, of learning is the students. It's their responsibility. This is a cooperation between two people, me and private lessons, but obviously think about what we've done as human beings. We have accomplished amazing things. This is just a proof of it. We just came here and we were sharing ideas. I have to say, and I have to thank you all, because every single one of you taught me something. For example, by watching videos of all the YouTube polyglots taught me something. Every and each one of them. So I believe that cooperation is key, and this conference is, I think, the beginning of something great. Thank you very much. Want some water? Does anybody have water? Water. You can ask questions if you want.
Question and water.
Water too. That's great. I would like you, since this is a multilingual conference, I would like you to ask a question in English first, so that everybody can understand, and then you can ask it in the language. I don't know, Italian, for example. You can start with Italian, and I will answer both in English and Italian, and then let me first drink some water.
I've got a question for you, Luca. Sei felice? Okay, who wants to go first?
Prima in italiano, vai, spara.
Ok, dai, sparo.
Così cambiamo lingua.
Cambiamo lingua. E poi chi traduce? Traduco io stesso?
Traduci tu stesso,
sì, okay.
Come vuoi.
Dai, allora, innanzitutto mi fa molto piacere essere qui e ho apprezzato molto anche tra tutte le altre, anche la tua.
Perfino la mia.
Perfino la tua, pensa, addirittura. So I'm glad to be here and I appreciate very much his presentation. Noi tra l'altro condividiamo il fatto di essere entrambi ingegneri che hanno poi cambiato strada in un certo senso.
Sembra che ce ne siano tantissimi.
Sì, sembra che ce ne siano, esatto.
Sono tutti ingegneri.
We share the fact that we are both engineers and we changed our way, let's say.
Anch'io.
So, and So, well, la mia domanda è hai parlato di un metodo di Pareto, no, un principio di Pareto, e volevo capire cos'è. So, my question is, what is this Pareto Principle?
Allora, il principio di Pareto è un principio fondamentalmente che vale per qualsiasi campo, è praticamente è un principio cognitivo, diciamo così. In pratica, applicandolo alle lingue, quando si impara una lingua, se uno, questo almeno è quello che faccio io, se uno impara le basi, quando si parla di lingue e di parole, per esempio di accumulare parole dopo parole, ma le parole non hanno senso senza contesto, no? Quindi tutte queste parole sono attaccate a una rete. Il principio di Pareto in questo caso significa costruire con un 20%, studiando in un certo modo, il modo di assemblare i pezzi di una lingua per poi espanderla. Quindi in pratica uno lavora il 20%, supponiamo che tu debba raggiungere un certo risultato, che se da 1 a 100, lavori il 20% in un certo modo, e l'80% ti viene quasi gratis, quasi di conseguenza. Questo non vale solo per le lingue. Per esempio, quando io ero all'università e facevo fisica, non so se l'hai fatto anche tu, fisica generale. In fisica generale il mio problema era che per noi è uno degli esami più difficili.
Ricordi di tradurre ogni tanto?
I'll say all in Italian, I'm gonna say the same thing in English. E quello che succedeva è che all'inizio non sapevo bene come studiare, quindi mi ero impantanato con questa fisica 1 e cercavo di capire come funzionasse, e alla fine mi sono fatto tutto il famoso Mistura, che è un libro, pensando adesso mi sparo tutti gli esercizi e ce la faccio. E invece no, perché io non avevo capito che quando tu affronti un problema e dici vabbè, questo l'ho capito, guardiamo la soluzione, non impari nulla. Se invece ci sbatti la testa, non su 100 esercizi, ma su 20, magari 5, ma lo fai bene, quei 5 esercizi, ecco perché si dice fare gli esercizi, no? Dopo la teoria, ti danno la possibilità di sviluppare l'ingegneria. Anche quando sei un ingegnere, probabilmente le cose che hai studiato all'università non te le ricordi tutte, ma ti ricordi come farle. L'ingegnere sa fare le cose. Questo è, diciamo, il principio di Pareto spiegato in maniera un po' empirica, però vale sia per le lingue che per l'ingegneria che per tutto il resto.
Now, after the translation, we may have time for one more question.
Well, to make a long story short, the Pareto Principle is simply you study, you add quality, you put quality, for example, at the beginning for 20%. If you have a result and you have to reach 100%, efficiency, you study with quality at the beginning, and then you develop the capacity of expanding what you know. And this goes not only for languages but also for engineering. For example, when I went to university, I had a lot of problems with an exam. In particular, was physics. It's like mechanics and stuff, and I didn't actually understand that the problem was not. I thought this is difficult, so if I take an exercise book and I try to do all the exercises, I'm gonna figure it out. It doesn't work that way. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. So if you spend some time really trying to understand like 5 problems, these 5 problems, the solution, trying to rack your brains, is going to give you the capacity of developing, is going to give you the opportunity of developing a capacity to face all the other problems. And this is like 20%, it means you build a core in your head, which means, developing the capacity of facing other problems within a certain field.
Well, that was a lot shorter in English.
Told we were running out of time.
Bueno, Luca, te lo pregunto en castellano.
Venga.
¿Está bien? Me gustó mucho la idea que puedes encontrar muchos clientes por tu perfil de YouTube. Pero ¿cómo lo haces exactamente? Porque, por ejemplo, mi profesora de holandés la encontré por YouTube. Si a lo mejor alguien acá ha visto los vídeos de ella, si busca cualquier cosa sobre el holandés, como por ejemplo el alfabeto, cómo se pronuncia, lo que sea, es siempre un vídeo de ella. Y en su perfil hay una descripción que dice, si quieren clases particulares, aquí está mi correo electrónico. Y así la encontré. Pero no sé si en tu perfil, si tienes un enlace a tu blog, o si haces videos, o el video principal en tu perfil dice, si quieres clases particulares sobre cómo aprender idiomas, contáctame aquí. ¿Cómo lo haces? Yeah, should I translate that myself? So I think it's a great idea what you're doing, that you can earn from your YouTube presence. And one example of this that I've found myself is my Dutch teacher. Her name is Liederwij. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. My Dutch is not one of my best languages. And I found my Dutch teacher on YouTube. I did a search like how to pronounce a certain letter, and her videos came up. And she's got one of the most popular YouTube channels for videos, and something I mentioned yesterday because she was answering a question that I was putting in. And on her YouTube description, it says, if you would like private Dutch lessons, this is my email address. And she's like €10 an hour, which I'm very happy with. She's very good, so I got in touch with her for that. And I think that for me was direct. I was on her channel, I saw this, contact me by email. So I was just wondering what Luca does exactly, if he has like a particular video about about his language coaching, or if he has a link to a blog with more details, or what he does specifically about that.
Bueno, para contestar a sus preguntas, es que no. O sea, yo tengo muy pocos vínculos. Lo he dicho, por ejemplo, a algunos amigos, pero es que eso me extraña mucho, porque hay una cantidad enorme, sobre todo ahora, de personas que me contactan a través de mi blog. Eso es principal, ¿no? Miran los vídeos. Puse también vínculos, por ejemplo, en algunos vídeos diciendo, bueno, quieres venir a mi blog y puedes ver que que doy clases por Skype. Pero la cosa que me asusta un poquito es que aunque no haya puesto muchas cosas por internet, tengo una malanga de personas que quieren tomar clases. Entonces casi no necesito hacerlo. El problema es que, como estaba diciendo antes, el problema es que estudiar idiomas ya requiere mucho tiempo, y después enseñar idiomas requiere mucho más tiempo. Y ya estoy satisfecho ahora, pero yo, por ejemplo, una cosa que quería hacer es automatizar el proceso. Significa que tengo que cambiar un poco la estrategia, porque, bueno, es que soy drogadicto de idiomas. Entonces, para mí, enseñar idiomas, por ejemplo, lo que estaba diciendo antes es que si quieres que los idiomas sean parte de tu vida, bueno, si hablas 10 idiomas cada día dando clases, pues ya está, es estupendo, pero al mismo tiempo eso requiere tan tiempo que después no tiene tiempo para otras cosas que son importantes en la vida. Entonces, mi sueño sería trabajar menos y ganar más. Es el sueño de todos. Es el sueño de todos. Pero principalmente lo que estaba diciendo es que no puse muchos vínculos. Quiero hacerlo, pero una vez tendría que cambiar la estrategia antes de poner más vínculos. Entonces, lo he dicho, por ejemplo, en algunos vídeos he dicho, bueno, en mis clases, por ejemplo, hice una entrevista con este hombre, David, y muchos estudiantes me dijeron que la razón por la cual me contactaron es que escucharon la entrevista y se enteraron de que yo doy clases por Skype, y entonces, bueno, me contactaron a través de mi blog y me dijeron, Luca, ¿podemos tomar clases? Y yo he dicho, bueno, ya. Y ya está. And now it's going to be a little bit long to say this in English. I would just say that I'm being contacted every day by a lot of people who ask me if they can take classes every day. So I didn't say that. I made an interview with David, and I said that I'm a language coach and I give classes via Skype. And I was contacted by people, but the problem is that I love learning languages, so I spend a fair amount of time trying to learn languages. And at the same time, when you speak, and this gave me this job is my dream job, because it allows me to speak 7, 8, 9 languages every single day. And I don't have just to speak languages. I have to, a lot of people ask me to, they want to figure out, decipher the phonetic tissue, as they call it, of a language. So I started studying linguistics by myself, how languages work, etc., etc. So this is my dream. They basically pay me to learn also, because when you teach somebody, you also learn. So the problem is time, because I have a lot of students, so I spend a lot of time, every day teaching, and this goes to the detriment of other things that are important in life. So I have, before putting other things, for example, saying that I am doing this full time, etc. Well, now I'm saying it very publicly. So, but I think in general, if you, for example, decide to do this job, you should try to customize it. You should try to find a strategy that optimizes time with action. This is more or less what I wanted to say.
Okay, unfortunately, we have only got time for one more. Because time is ticking on, we've got to vacate in less than 20 minutes. So, Amir.
Лука, привет. Я сначала
Привет.
спрошу по-русски, а потом сам перейду на английский. Очень приятно здесь находиться, я действительно очень рад. Вспомнил фразу из фильма «Эффект бабочки». Да? Может ли взмах крыльев бабочки в Пекине вызвать ураган в Канзасе? Да? То есть вот именно взмах крыльев, это было твое первое видео, где ты говорил на 8 языках, и вот теперь уже ураган, мы, собственно, здесь находимся. Вся эта конференция — это последствия, это эффект бабочки. Значит, мой вопрос. Ну, ты уже консультируешь много людей через Skype, как языковой консультант, как языковой коуч. И есть, на самом деле, много таких вот репетиторов, коучей, которые, наверное, с удовольствием научились бы у тебя искусству непосредственно коучинга. То есть это уже было бы не обучение, а очень такие дорогостоящие эксклюзивные консультации. Я вот хотел тебя спросить, планируешь ли ты предлагать такие уже как high-end консультации, да? Ну и теперь то же самое по-английски, да? Well, I just wanted to say that it's amazing to be here. It reminds me of a butterfly effect. Can a butterfly flapping its wings in Beijing cause an hurricane in Kansas? So I guess the butterfly was the video of Luca where he spoke 8 languages, and then it followed, and here we are, like so many great language enthusiasts, and that's the hurricane in Kansas, so to speak. Yeah. Yeah. In Budapest, I should say. Yeah. And the question is, yeah. Well, you spoke about it with Benny already, that you have already a clientele all over the world, but I guess my guess is that there's a demand from other, language coaches or wannabe coaches that could maybe learn an art of coaching from the master. And I was wondering if you're planning on offering some. And obviously, it's not going to be a coach; it's going to be high-end, consultation. So that goes well to your idea, trabajar menos y ganar más. So I was wondering if you're going to do it in the future.
Да, я думаю, что сейчас то, что я хочу делать, на самом деле, это простой шаг. Это, я думаю, что, конечно, я работаю, но я просто единственный человек. Знаешь, это проблема. И я думаю, что это очень важно, потому что люди, я знаю, что самое главное, на самом деле, это что люди могут понимать, каким образом изучать языки. Но я думаю, тоже есть великолепные полиглоты, которые могут работать, как я. Да, и, для того, чтобы отвечать на твой вопрос, да, я хочу это делать, но в будущем, я просто не знал когда, но может быть через год, я думаю 6 месяцев, более-менее. So what I said is that yes, I believe that there are some amazing polyglots and they're willing to teach and convey their knowledge and around the world, and I believe that people like Amir, for example, we have been working together, not only with Amir, with Michal, he's there. We have been working together I don't teach Italian to Amir. We cooperate. That's a little bit different. And we cooperate also in Russian, the same thing with Michal, the same thing with a Japanese girl. And we have been doing this according to a certain technique that both know. And we are learning so much from one another. And I believe that in a way, they understood how this concept of teaching works and coaching. And I would like to do this. I believe that the next step, and this is in answer to Amir's question, that this is the next step, to teach people. No, it's not my method. It's not about a method. It's about cooperation and teach how to learn. You don't have to teach a language. If you teach how to learn, then people can work and walk on their own. I think that's about it.
That's a wrap, guys.
Bravo!